Hey class, I'm Gonzo,
And I'm Mark.
and in today's dungeon class session, we're going to be talking about Session 0.
Okay. All right, Gonzo. What is Session 0?
What is Session 0? That's a good question. And we've talked about this a little bit, and this is, for us, maybe the most important part of starting a D&D campaign or D&D group when you're playing together. And this is your very first session together. And so what we wanted to talk about today was what you cover in that first session.
All right. So basically, just to kind of set the format, like Session 0, everybody kind of gets together on an evening, and you come together. And one of the things you want to address and the question you want to answer is what kind of game or campaign setting does the group want to play? Do they want to play like a dark fantasy? Do they want to do like a swashbuckling kind of thing? So that's a question you want to answer in that first session. So you and you could come at that a couple different ways, Gonzo. I think really you could come at it maybe you have an idea as a DM that you want to do. You I think I have an idea for a game, and you talk to the players and say, what do you guys think? I'm thinking maybe doing this kind of thing, and see and kind of gauge their reaction and how the enthusiasm there. But another way to come would be just I have no preconceived idea of what we do, and just start having a conversation with the players and say,
Seeing what they like.
Yeah, see what you want, and just start from scratch.
So you mentioned there's so many different areas or flavors of fantasy. In fact, in your Dungeon Master's Guide, in page 38, it starts listing the different flavors of fantasy, and maybe that's a good place to start if you're a dungeon master and where you'd like to get an idea of what you'd like to try to run. So you mentioned swashbuckling. I see you have Ghost of Saltmarsh here.
Yeah.
That's already a pre-made adventure that covers a lot of on the water Pirates of the Caribbean style. And if your players are all into that, like you said, maybe they've watched binged Pirates of the Caribbean, and they're all coming to the table. We want to be on boats and fight with. So then that would be perfect. You could grab that, and you could kind of take what you want out of that and create a game. Another way, you said dark fantasy or maybe horror themed.
Yeah.
D&D again has put out something called Curse of Strahd. Now this is from first edition or second edition D&D. Castle Ravenloft, and it has moved on through the editions of Dungeons and Dragons for the last 40 years. And fifth edition's Curse of Strahd adventure is another great one for just that style of dark fantasy, horror mixed in. It's perfect. But so the first thing we would cover with your group is what's the style of gameplay? What are you guys looking for out of this?
Absolutely.
All right,
very good.
Cool.
And I think the next thing you need to cover as a group when you get together for Session 0 is the table rules. You come together, and in that you talk about rules, expectations.
Who brings the pizza?
And the important things, absolutely. Yeah. And I think what you can look in page 13 of the Dungeon Master Guide. They'll give you some ideas of some things to have as rules. But for our table, I know one rule that we've kind of established is it's PG-13. So we have younger kids, we've had younger people in the group.
So the language that you want to keep,
no swearing and stuff when you don't get the rule that you want, and so those kind of things. And the other thing is really no cell phones really at the table, and that's important because we want everybody can be engaged. Mm-hmm. Kind of the point of what we're doing here is we want to be engaged with each other and playing the game, and so we really don't allow phones. So if you talk about those expectations up front, then there's no problems down the road typically. So everyone's all on the same page there.
So, so table rules is a great opportunity for you, the Dungeon Master, to set up the expectations with the players on how you want to do the actual physics of the game as far as what time you meet, where you meet. Also, what about if someone's not there? You could set up that rule ahead of time. Like if someone doesn't show up to the game, what do you do with their character? Right. I know we've had that actual issue before where we've kind of written, I remember one guy, his schedule is that he's in and out, but he still wants to play when he's there.
Right.
So we created a little curse that the poor guy has that he just blinks in and out of the game because of his curse. And of course it always happens right before the group is to go into battle.
Always.
This Minotaur, barbarian, or fighter charges, and then he's got to go in real life, and he blinks out of the game, and the rest of the group's left without him. That's another thing to cover under the table rules and that kind of thing. That's great. That's great. And also, you mentioned page 13.
Yes.
It's actually page 235 and 236 in your Dungeon Master's Guide. Also, I believe we're going to have a link to the Dungeon Master's Guide in this video in the description. If you don't have one and you're looking to run a game, you should get one. There's so much good stuff covered in that. And these are just some of the things that we're talking about. But Session 0, definitely a good place to cover table rules. What else do we cover?
Yeah, another thing you talk about is character creation. So at this point, it's where you actually create your characters on Session 0 night. So at this point, the players kind of go off with their books and all and start kind of figuring out what they want to do as a character. And really, that's a good time for the DM to kind of go around and talk with everybody and say, what are you thinking about doing, and helping them out. And so they might say, like, well, I'm thinking I want to be a tiefling, but I kind of feel like I want to be this, and you can kind of refer to some of the other books even that have more sub races and all in tiefling, for example. But helping them out with what they want to do, and also at that point, maybe they say something like, well, I kind of want to be a gunslinger. I saw Matt Mercer's Gunslinger, and I'd like to play that. That to be the point where, if as a DM, that's where you kind of communicate what you're comfortable with. Maybe it's a setting where it's like, I don't think Gunslinger is going to really fit that setting. That would be a conversation you could have now. Kind of nip that in the bud somewhat at that point, not embarrass them in front of anybody, but just
so
say,
a
I don't
group
know
of players aren't showing up with pre-made characters, and then you're like, wait a minute, I don't want that in the game, or that doesn't work. I don't want a Aarakocra that fly around, or whatever you're comfortable with. So you cover that again in Session 0. That's actually maybe one of my favorite parts of being a dungeon master, is the part where you kind of maybe help, or at least be around when they're creating their characters and especially their backgrounds. And we've talked about it, but running a story by using the characters' backgrounds has been a lot of fun. And I know that's how both of us like to dungeon master, or how to DM a game. You can run pre-made adventures, and they're great, especially when you're just starting out.
Right.
But somehow, when you're tying into your players' backgrounds, and you're letting their backgrounds evolve as the game evolves over time and over different sessions, they're more engaged and you're more engaged. If the character's after a Vorpal sword, which I've never had yet in my playing experience, or a certain relic, or if they're looking for their long lost brother, or revenge for something that happened to one of their family members or something, it's great storyline opportunity for the dungeon master to decide, later I'm gonna present a clue to that item or that person or something.
Yeah, I really like that, because it feels like they're helping write the story, not just the DM. They're a part of writing that story, and that makes more buy-in for everybody. So that's basically the thing that you do in Session 0 is you kind of do that and get that together and talk about expectations and all those things we talked about. So we really feel like Session 0 is the way to go. Is to do that and not just wing it, or if you're going to come prepared with these and come prepared with prepared characters, that's okay if you're just starting out. But the good stuff is if you do run a Session 0, because you have that buy-in right away.
Yeah, and I also thought of don't worry about your players being upset that you're not actually playing that day. Just creating a character, for a lot of people, is a lot of the fun. So if that's your session, your first session is you're creating a character, you're working on background, setting table rules up, and the expectations and the style you're playing. That's a good night, and trust me, it'll be fun. Maybe you get some time to start the adventure off, maybe one little quick encounter or something, but that's a good night. And that's actually, like I said, that's one of my favorite nights playing, is the beginning.
Yeah, I think it builds anticipation, because they get excited about the characters, and you're like, oh, this story sounds like it'd be really interesting, and you already get this buy-in. It kind of hypes it up, and so then when you do have the beginning of the session, the beginning of the campaign, then they're kind of hyped up and ready to go.
Speaking of excitement, I don't know if you've noticed, but we wear some of the coolest shirts around, and our very first official sponsor for Dungeon Class is a group called Dungeon Outfitters. They have the link will be in the description. They make D&D style shirts, and I love the Heartbeat line. This one has a bard on it, but they've got other classes built into the Heartbeat. I really like that. I've seen some really cool shirts. Your money can go out the window, because there's a lot of good opportunities to. So check it out. Check it out in the description. Look them up. Dungeon Outfitters, our very first sponsor. We're glad to have them. I think that's it for today. We're going to get more into detail on each of these things in the future, but Session 0, make it happen in your campaign. If you're DMing for the first time or the 100th time, it's a great opportunity to start things off on the right foot, I believe. So.
I agree.
All right.
And with that,
Class dismissed.
Hey, one more thing. Dungeon Class is growing, and we're excited to have you along on this journey. We are building a community together, and if you want to help us grow, please like the video, subscribe, and comment below. What do you do for a session 0? And tell everybody you know about this channel, and we can all grow together. And thanks for watching.